Canton in the early 1900s was experiencing growth in huge form, which meant, and that was of course due to the Champion Fiber plant and its construction. But with growth, there are things that need to be taken care of: water sources, sewage, which back then they had other ways of maintaining. But in the midst of that, the state had been sending out warnings about typhoid. But whatever happened, that kind of went under the radar with Canton. So in 1917, Canton was affected by the typhoid epidemic, a local typhoid epidemic. The hard part was that the rest of the state, I'm talking places like Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Wilmington, Raleigh, drug Canton's name through the mud. And which is, it's hard. It's hard when that occurs. But the Canton people came together, and as Edie Burnett will share what Canton did, it was just people working together. And so anyway, I'm going to defer to Edie, and she will share her information.
As Caroline told you, Canton was a young town, and it was ill prepared to meet the challenge of a serious epidemic like typhoid fever. We lacked medical facilities and personnel in that spring of 1917. Patients required care in a hospital setting, but there were only 2 hospitals, a small, poorly equipped one in Waynesville and another in Asheville, approximately 18 miles away. And it was not easy or quick to get to either of those facilities. Fortunately, Reuben B. Robertson, general manager of Champion Fiber Company, the primary employer of Canton area citizens, initiated a rapid response. When he learned that the town citizens were being infected with this contagious disease, he acted quickly. He met with the chairman of the Canton Board of Health, local physicians, the Board of Aldermen, and he offered the cooperation and resources of the entire Champion organization. He wanted to do all he could to stem the further spread of the disease. We know these things because of the log, and this was a Champion internal publication that records a good bit of Canton's history. But according to what we learned from the log, Champion had recently purchased the former Episcopal Mission School building located on Hill Street overlooking the mill, and they were going to use it as a clubhouse. But Robertson offered the use of this structure for a hospital. Quoting from the log, the building was turned over to a master mechanic, William Bill Battison, and he was given instructions to remodel it into a hospital with haste. Consequently, a large crew made up of the pulp and paper mill carpenters, electricians, masons, painters, plumbers attacked the old school building with the various weapons of their trade. While the building was being renovated, the mill's purchasing department began telegraphing orders for hospital equipment. A large order for beds and other hospital furnishings had already been placed with a Louisville, Kentucky business by a hospital, ironically, in neighboring Waynesville. And this order was diverted by express to the Champion Hospital to meet the emergency. Further, 42 women, members of a local club, worked at 5 sewing machines. They were preparing sheets, pillowcases, hospital gowns from material that had been donated by Champion Fiber. A Dr. T.F. Reynolds was selected as the physician in charge of the hospital, and a search for nurses was conducted by Champion. So 5 trained nurses and 1 probationer, someone in training, were on hand to help arrange the furniture and the other supplies when it was unpacked. Within 12 hours from the time the carpenters stopped their hammering, 5 patients were occupying hospital beds. The Champion Hospital in Canton was established, equipped, and staffed in 1 week. Patients were not restricted to only typhoid victims. A related story in the Asheville Citizen Times on June 28, 1917, reports that a 13-year-old Clyde Aiken of Canton died in the hospital from injuries incurred in an accident. In addition to the accounts in the log, a similar record of this hospital is also included in a book, Heritage of Healing, a medical history of Haywood County, which was written by Nina and William Anderson. This book further states that each Champion employee was assessed 50 cents a month to cover the hospital's operating expenses. They called it the first known instance of hospital insurance in the county. Employees and immediate family had the first priority at the hospital, but patients outside the plant's employment circle were also accepted. 5 years after the hospital opened, the Carolina Mountaineer and Waynesville Courier printed an official notice of dissolution of the hospital by the Secretary of State on Thursday, March the 2nd, 1922. With health care improving throughout Haywood County, Champion divested itself of the hospital business and returned to concentrating on the manufacture of pulp, paper, and tannin extract.
One of the great things about Canton is Canton learned from its it learned from its mistakes. And one of the things about the typhoid outbreak was that they had not been prepared. So in this go round, when they heard about what came and what was coming, they prepared early, as Peggy will be sharing. But also, it was one of those things where it affected, the Spanish flu was a pandemic. It started, believe it or not, they're thinking in the middle part of the United States in what they would call the cantons. Those were the special camps of the military. They were called cantons. And every time I read it, I'm like, Canton. Yeah. So anyway, with this, the soldiers were all put in a close space, and then when the flu outbreak came, being this is early medicine and the early changes and transitions, they were not aware of what was going on. But as these soldiers were sent across the sea, then the flu went to Europe. And then, of course, as the soldiers were shipped back, the flu came back to the States. Even they were focused on raising money for the war effort. And they were warned by different people, no public displays, no special celebrations. So what did one of the places do? They had like a parade of over thousands of people, and that became a hot spot. So anyway, in the midst of this, you have different people that were affected by the flu. Even our governor back then, Thomas Bickett, had a very weak case of the flu, but he had the flu. Different community leaders had the flu. Mr. Robertson, who Reuben B., as many people called, he and his wife, their whole family came down with the Spanish flu, and they lost one of their daughters, a little girl about 5 years old. And then you had a Dr. Johnson from the Canton area who was instrumental when the typhoid outbreak, and also in this. Doctors back then made house calls, and his wife, I guess, would go with them. But anyway, she came down with the Spanish flu and subsequently died from a lot of the side effects of the flu. So anyway, just wanted to share those facts of the surrounding information. Another thing I wanted to share was one of the things they used was Vicks VapoRub. That had been just on the market, and Vicks was North Carolina product. And I can even remember my grandfather calling it, the Vicks Sab or pneumonia cure. That was one of his other terms for it. And so people would say, stock up on the Vicks VapoRub and use this. So, and people had other ways, that they would cure the flu. But yes, this affected many, even the post office in Waynesville, every one of the workers there came down with the Spanish flu. So I just wanted to leave that as to how this affected, and even the similarities now of what's being played out.
Okay, prior to the arrival of the Spanish flu pandemic in Haywood County, Canton was beginning to experience an era of growth and prosperity. The population had climbed from 400 to about 6,000 in the years that the Canton, the Champion paper mill was being built, and its houses for its employees. The town didn't suffer as greatly as some of the areas because the town leaders were quick to close the schools and the churches and businesses, and pamphlets were sent out to all the families and businesses explaining the symptoms of the Spanish flu and how to take care of themselves and social distance, much like they're doing now with the COVID pandemic. The Waynesville police chief saw that it was so contagious that he outlawed spitting in public and fined people $5 for each offense. But Champion played a really big role in that pandemic because their employees started cooking meals in the meals cafeteria and taking it to their employees and families. And the Red Cross set up a emergency headquarters in Waynesville to help deal with the families. There wasn't a vaccine, there was no cure, so people quarantined, and a few were sent to the hospital. When the fatalities started, people reported that there was coffins stacked on top of each other outside the county health officer's office in Waynesville. But as it progressed, the town did as other areas did.
Thank you, and I just, you know, any of this, if you want any information, call the museum, and I'll put you on the right track to do the research. So, thank you.